In the early dawn of April 5, 1945, in the crumbling outskirts of a bomb-ravaged Berlin, 15-year-old Anna Muller clutched the fraying hem of her sister's coat, her heart pounding in sync with the distant echoes of artillery fire. Beside her, 18-year-old Liesel Muller trembled as the shadows of the German soldiers loomed closer, their laughter a stark contrast to the horrors surrounding them. Across the street, the menacing figure of SS Colonel Friedrich Schultz, a man known for his ruthless efficiency, surveyed the scene with a predatory gaze. He had made a forbidden offer, a life-saving exchange that required a heavy price. The sisters had been strapped with live grenades, their fates entwined with the whims of a man who saw war as a game. If they failed to disarm the explosives within 60 seconds, the countdown would detonate not only their lives but also send shockwaves through what remained of the civilian population, potentially claiming over 100 souls. As the tension crackled in the air, Anna and Liesel's only hope lay in unraveling the twisted riddles of Schultz's demands before time ran out, and the unforgiving chaos of war swallowed them whole. Anna's mind raced as she looked into Liesel's eyes, searching for reassurance while the cacophony of the battlefield loomed closer. The weight of the grenades felt like chains dragging them down in their fleeting moments of despair. Colonel Friedrich Schultz had taken pleasure in this cruel game, offering them a chance at survival, but only if they could complete his twisted task. The stakes were impossibly high, and the reality of their situation felt surreal, as if they had stepped into a nightmare from which they could not awaken. "Anna," Liesel murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have to focus." "What did he say?" "We need to find a way out of this." The sisters had been raised on tales of bravery and loyalty, their mother instilling in them the values of courage in the face of impending doom. But as Anna glanced at the watch on Liesel's wrist, the ticking sound became a malicious metronome counting down their potential slaughter. They had to defuse the grenades, but the mechanics of the devices were a complete mystery to them. "Liesel, think," Anna urged, her voice steadier than she felt. "If we can figure out how they work, maybe we can, I don't know, disable them somehow." The laughter of the soldiers echoed ominously behind them. It was then that a figure emerged from the shadows, a soldier from the Wehrmacht, his uniform tattered yet still distinguishable. His eyes, however, betrayed a flicker of compassion. "Anna Liesel," he called out softly, "I'm not here to hurt you. I need you to listen. There's not much time. If you can buy yourself a moment, I may be able to help." "Who are you?" Anna demanded, frustration and fear intertwining. "My name is April," he replied. "I've seen too much horror to let this continue. I can't disarm the grenades, but I can help you understand them. You have to trust me." Anna studied April's face, searching for any sign of deceit. She could see the lines of worry etched deep into his brow, the burden of conscience apparent in his stance. The soldiers' laughter grew louder, reminding them of the urgency of their predicament. Time was running out, and with every second that passed, the sisters found themselves teetering on the brink of oblivion. If they could just decipher the mechanism, if they could just hold on a little longer, they might escape the clutches of the SS Colonel and his deadly game. But the pressure mounted, and every breath felt like it could be their last. "Okay, April," Anna finally relented, her gaze unwavering. "We'll trust you. Just tell us what to do." Enjoying? Subscribe and click hype. As the echoes of artillery fire faded into a tense silence, Anna and Liesel Muller exchanged a desperate glance, the fear in their eyes mingling with a flicker of hope. Colonel Friedrich Schultz, the SS officer who had orchestrated this cruel game, leaned in closer, his breath cold against the sisters' skin. With a sinister grin, he began to lay out his demands. "First," he said, his voice dripping with malice, "you must find the mechanism that holds the grenades. Look closely at the straps. Time is of the essence, and if you fail—" He let the threat hang in the air, the unspoken consequence chilling the sisters to the bone. Anna gulped, her heart racing as she crouched down, fingers trembling as they brushed against the rough fabric of the straps secured around her waist. Liesel, maintaining a shaky composure, joined her, their eyes darting between the colonel and the ticking clock that seemed to mock their plight. "Do you have a knife?" Liesel whispered, glancing around nervously as she felt the weight of the grenades pressing against her. They had no tools, no way to cut through the bindings, and no allies in sight. The streets were empty. The civilians had fled or perished. A sudden noise made them jump. The distant sound of boots marching, the unmistakable cadence of soldiers patrolling the area. Anna's mind raced. "We can't waste time," she urged, looking up at her sister with a fierce determination. "We have to think of something, anything." Mahler, who had been watching their every movement, stepped forward, his expression shifting from amusement to impatience. "You girls have 1 minute. I suggest you start thinking or prepare to meet your maker." "Wait!" Anna's voice cut through the air, a last-ditch effort to stall for time. "What if we agree to your terms? What do you want from us?" Her voice wavered, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact with Mahler, searching for any shred of humanity in his cold demeanor. A flicker of intrigue crossed the colonel's face. "Ah, finally a glimmer of sense. Perhaps there is hope for you yet. I want information about the resistance. My men are always 1 step behind them. If you can bring me their names, where they gather, or anything that might help, I will consider letting you both go." Liesel's eyes widened, understanding the weight of what was being asked. They couldn't give in to Muller's demands. It would endanger countless lives. "No, we can't betray our friends," she exclaimed, her voice rising in defiance. "Then you better start disarming those grenades," Muller snapped, the playful tone evaporating as he checked his watch, a small smirk returning to his lips. Anna felt her heart sink. She knew they were trapped, but the thought of betraying their comrades was unbearable. With a steely resolve, she took a deep breath. "There must be another way," she said, her voice firm. "We can buy time. Just give us a moment to think." "Time is a luxury you no longer possess," Muller replied, his voice laced with authority. "You have 30 seconds. Now, are you ready to play? Or shall I do it for you?" Panic bubbled within Anna as she scanned their surroundings, but then she spotted something. A broken shard of glass near the rubble of a nearby building. "Liesel, over there!" she shouted, pointing urgently. "We can use that." Without waiting for a reply, Anna lunged toward the glass, desperation fueling her movements. She knew they needed to act fast, but the weight of the grenades felt heavier than ever as the seconds ticked away. They couldn't fail. They had to escape this nightmare, not just for themselves, but for everyone left behind in the chaos of war. As the countdown ticked mercilessly in the background, Anna's mind raced for a solution. The weight of the live grenades strapped to her and her sister Liesel felt like a leaden shroud, pressing down on her resolve. They had been stripped of their childhood by the war, and now they faced a sickening ultimatum from Mahler, a man who had twisted the concept of survival into a grotesque game of power and fear. "Liesel, listen to me," Anna whispered, breaking through the fog of panic that clouded her sister's eyes. "We have to work together. There must be a way to disarm these grenades. Think, what did we learn from Father?" Liesel took a shaky breath, her blue eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But what if we can't? What if we—" Her voice trailed off, fear threatening to consume her. "No," Anna insisted, squeezing her sister's hand tightly. "We can't think like that. Remember the stories Father used to tell us about defusing bombs in the war? We need to focus. We have to find that wire, the one that we can cut." Just then, the laughter of the soldiers nearby echoed into their ears, a painful reminder of their dire situation. Colonel Muller leaned lazily against a nearby wall, watching with a twisted smile. Time is running out, girls. Perhaps you should consider the consequences of your failure. I assure you, it would be far worse than the instant death of your bodies. Anna's heart raced at his words. The thought of thousands of lives potentially lost because of their failure fueled her determination. We can't let him win. He thinks we're just toys in his game, but we have the power to change this, she murmured to Liesel, her voice steadying with newfound courage. They began to inspect the grenades, each feature a potential clue to their salvation. Anna carefully maneuvered her fingers over the smooth metal, feeling for any signs of wiring or mechanisms that could signal a way to disarm them. There's got to be a lever or something. Just remember, we have to work fast. Liesel nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Okay, let's do this, she breathed, rallying her dwindling strength. With each second that melted away, pressure mounted on the sisters. Anna focused intently, desperate to block out the thoughts of the devastation surrounding them. The ruins of their home, the cries of families torn apart. She could hear the distant rumble of tanks rolling through the streets, the echoes of a city nearing its end. But those thoughts were pushed away as she identified a thin wire encased beneath the grenade's pin. This one. I think this is the one we need to cut, Anna yelled, her voice rising above the countdown that was now almost unbearable. Are you sure? Liesel asked, her eyes wide with fear. It has to be. We don't have a choice, Anna shouted, gripping Liesel's hand tightly as the seconds dwindled. They were mere moments away from devastation. As she prepared to cut the wire, the realization hit her with bone-chilling clarity. If they failed, not only would their lives extinguish, but they would unknowingly unleash a wave of destruction on innocent lives around them. They couldn't fail. They had to escape this nightmare, not just for themselves, but for everyone left behind in the chaos of war. Time was slipping away, but so was their hope. The air was thick with tension as Anna and Liesel stared at the live grenades strapped to their bodies, the cold metal pressing against their skin like a cruel reminder of their precarious situation. The sound of distant gunfire faded into a dull roar, overshadowed by the ticking of their fate. With each tick, Anna felt her heart race, the weight of desperation pushing her to think clearly despite the chaos surrounding them. The laughter of the German soldiers was a haunting reminder of the twisted game being played, and the mocking gaze of SS Colonel Friedrich Schultz loomed in her mind, a specter of malice that made her skin crawl. Focus, Liesel, Anna whispered urgently, willing her sister to remain calm. We have to figure this out. We can't let Muller win. The mention of Muller's name ignited a flicker of defiance in Liesel's eyes. They had to outsmart the ruthless SS officer who had turned them into pawns, and they weren't about to let him dictate their fate. As the seconds ticked away, Anna recalled the cryptic clues that Muller had given them. He said we need to disarm the grenades, but he also mentioned something about the heart. Anna murmured, her mind racing through the possibilities. What could that mean? Liesel bit her lip, the fear etched on her face. Maybe it's about finding something in the mechanism? She suggested, her voice trembling yet determined. If we can get to the core of each grenade, perhaps there's a way to stop the countdown. Realizing that time was their enemy, Anna squatted down, her fingers trembling as she examined the grenade closest to her. It was a model she recognized from her late father's stories, one that had a pin that needed to be pulled to deactivate. But would pulling the pin lead to instant detonation? She couldn't take that risk. We need to unscrew the base first, Anna decided, her voice steadying. Liesel nodded, adopting a similar position beside her as they frantically worked together, their breaths mingling in the cold morning air. As they twisted the bases of the grenades, the sound of their own heartbeat drowned out the world around them. It felt like they were racing against an invisible clock, every second stretching into an eternity. Anna felt a surge of anger at the thought of Muller watching them, enjoying their struggle as if it were a sport. "I refuse to let him take us down without a fight," Anna declared, her spirit igniting the atmosphere around them. "We are not just victims. We are survivors." With a final twist, both sisters felt a light click followed by a rush of air as the grenades began to respond to their efforts. "We're almost there," Liesel gasped, her hands trembling as they worked tirelessly to dismantle what was designed to end their lives. Just then, the laughter of the soldiers faded, and anxiety crept back into Anna's mind. How many were outside, waiting for the inevitable explosion? How many lives were in danger because of their predicament? The thought ignited a fierce determination. They had to escape this nightmare, not just for themselves, but for everyone left behind in the chaos of war. Time was slipping away, but so was their hope. With less than 30 seconds remaining on the countdown, Anna took a breath, steadying her hands. "Liesel, we can do this. On 3, we pull the pins." "Together," Liesel echoed, her voice finding strength in Anna's resolve. As they prepared, the sound of boots approached, echoing ominously against the rubble-strewn street. Anna locked eyes with Liesel. They were running out of time, but they were not running out of hope. As they prepared, the sound of boots approached, echoing ominously against the rubble-strewn street. Anna locked eyes with Liesel. They were running out of time, but they were not running out of hope. The sisters were determined to fight not just for their lives, but for the lives of the civilians that Colonel Friedrich Schultz had put at risk. Around them, the world had turned into a hellish landscape, the remnants of war a constant reminder of their fragile existence. "Focus, Anna. We can do this," Liesel urged, her voice a whisper, barely rising above the distant roar of artillery fire. The fear in her eyes mirrored Anna's own, but they both knew they had to push through, to uncover the truth behind Schultz's twisted game. The opaqueness of the situation hung over them like a thick fog, shrouding their thoughts in uncertainty. Muller had made the stakes clear. The countdown had begun, and the only way out of this madness was to solve the puzzle of the frayed wires and the ticking clock. The sisters knelt on the cold ground, the grit and filth of the city mingling with their sweat-soaked clothes. For a moment, they shared a glance of understanding. They were in this together, as always. "Do you remember when we played in the fields? How we used to pretend we were soldiers?" Anna asked, trying to lighten the suffocating atmosphere. The memory of laughter and freedom felt like a lifetime ago, but the bond they shared was unbreakable. Liesel nodded, a faint smile breaking through her fear. "And we always won, didn't we? Together we can win again." With renewed determination, Anna examined the weapons strapped to them. The live grenades pulsated ominously, a reminder of their ticking mortality. "We need to disconnect the wires in the right order," Anna said, her mind racing to recall anything she had learned about explosives. "If we make a mistake, it won't just be us. We must act like we're still in that game," Liesel interjected. "Like there's nothing at stake but the victory." The sisters exchanged a knowing glance, both fiercely aware of the reality of their situation. They needed to disarm the grenades, and they needed to do it fast. As Anna began to work on the first grenade, she felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from a fierce resolve to survive. She took a deep breath, focusing on the task at hand. "Okay, the blue wire first," Anna murmured, moving to snip the wire carefully. A sharp sound echoed, and for a heartbeat, their breath caught in unison. "Nothing happened," Liesel said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Keep going." Anna's heart raced as she continued. Each cut was a prayer, each tick of the clock a countdown to salvation or destruction. "Next is the green one," she stated, her mind racing through every survival instinct she had ever learned. "Just like that one time when we were trapped in the barn. Remember how we worked together?" Liesel's voice was steady, anchoring Anna in the midst of chaos. "I do. And we made it out," Anna replied, her voice growing firmer with each passing second. The bond they shared was palpable, the emotions of fear, love, and hope intermingling, creating a barrier against despair. The last wire lay before them, and uncertainty loomed large. They could hear the distant laughter of the soldiers, oblivious to the turmoil unfolding mere yards away. Anna's heart pounded in her chest as she took one final breath, steeling herself for the last cut. As she reached out to sever it, she felt Liesel's hand clasp her own, a silent vow of solidarity, a promise that no matter the outcome, they would face it together. Anna's heart pounded in her chest as she took one final breath, steeling herself for the last cut. As she reached out to sever it, she felt Liesel's hand clasp her own, a silent vow of solidarity, a promise that no matter the outcome, they would face it together. The seconds ticked away, each one a reminder of the weight of their situation. The live grenades strapped to their bodies seemed to pulse with the rhythm of their fear, a grim reminder of SS Colonel Friedrich Schultz's twisted game. With a swift motion, Anna cut the final wire. The sound of the last severed connection echoed sharply in her ears, and she held her breath, waiting for the inevitable explosion. Time slowed, and for a moment, all she could hear was her heartbeat. Then, in a split second, the tension in the air shifted. The countdown that had threatened their lives fell silent. They were alive. The relief washed over them like a flood, but it was quickly overshadowed by the anger that surged within Anna. "Schultz!" Anna shouted, her voice cutting through the dust-laden air like a blade. The oppressive atmosphere surrounding them crackled with defiance. She stood tall, her gaze fixated on the figure of the towering SS colonel as he approached, a smirk dominating his face. "You may have tried to turn us into pawns in your sordid game, but you underestimated us." Schultz's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough for Anna to seize the moment. "You think you can play with lives without consequence?" she continued, echoing the thoughts that had been circulating in her mind since the moment the grenades had been strapped to her and Liesel. "We're not some expendable resources, not tools of your war. We are sisters, and we refuse to be your sacrifices." Liesel stepped forward, emboldened by Anna's words, eyes blazing with a fiery determination. "You've lost sight of what it means to be human, Schultz. Your power is nothing without honor. You hide behind your uniform, but underneath, you're just a coward." The soldiers around them shifted uncomfortably, caught in the tension between the sisters' defiance and the authority of their colonel. Anna could see doubt flicker in the eyes of some younger men, their loyalty wavering as the truth of the sisters' words spilled out into the open. It was a chance, a glimmer of hope that perhaps they could turn the tide. "Enough!" Schultz barked, his face turning a shade of crimson. He stepped closer, the threat palpable in his stance. "You will regret this insolence. You think you can speak to me like that?" Anna, fueled by newfound courage, stepped even closer, refusing to back down. "No, you will regret underestimating us. We defused your deadly game. We survived your tests. You think you hold the power, but you're the one trapped in this war, a war you've chosen to lose." With a swift motion, Schultz reached for his sidearm, but before he could draw it, Anna leaped forward, her defiance unyielding. "You think your weapon can intimidate us? You're wrong. The real weapon is our resolve." In that moment, a gunshot rang out, not from Schultz, but from one of his soldiers who had finally made the choice to break the cycle of violence. The bullet struck Schultz squarely in the shoulder, sending him staggering back in shock. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. The boldness of the sisters had inspired a change in the hearts of the men who had followed his orders blindly. As the colonel fell, the soldiers hesitated, the chains of fear that had bound them beginning to dissolve. Anna and Liesel stood together, united in purpose, their fate now in their own hands. The sisters had turned the tide. They had confronted the very embodiment of the evil that had plagued their lives, and in that confrontation, not only had they found their strength, but they had ignited a spark of defiance in others, ready to rise against the darkness. Anna and Liesel stood together, united in purpose, their fate now in their own hands. The sisters had turned the tide. They had confronted the very embodiment of the evil that had plagued their lives, and in that confrontation, not only had they found their strength, but they had ignited a spark of defiance in others, ready to rise against the darkness. As they disarmed the grenades, Anna felt a rush of adrenaline mix with the resolute determination that coursed through her veins. In the immediate aftermath, the explosion they had feared never came. Instead, there was a deafening silence as the stunned soldiers surrounding them processed the scene. Colonel Friedrich Schultz, once a figure of terror, now bore an expression of disbelief that quickly morphed into rage. The sisters had outsmarted him, and for the first time it was the soldiers who felt powerless. Anna and Liesel, in that moment, transformed from mere victims into symbols of resistance. Soldiers began to lower their weapons, confusion replacing the animosity they had been conditioned to feel. In the days that followed, whispers of the sisters' bravery spread like wildfire through the remnants of the city. Inspired by Anna and Liesel's audacity, civilians began to band together, forming underground networks that defied the oppressive regime. With each passing hour, the sisters became icons of hope for those who had long felt powerless under the iron grip of Muller's rule. Reports of small acts of defiance emerged, and the once cowed populace began to realize that they were not alone. The weight of fear was beginning to lift, and with it came the promise of imminent change, a collective dream for a future free from the shackles of tyranny. Over the next few months, as the war continued to rage, the sisters dedicated themselves to the cause of liberation. They joined local resistance groups, using their knowledge of the city and its people to organize sabotage efforts against Muller's forces. Anna, with her keen intellect, worked on gathering intelligence, while Liesel, emboldened by her sister's courage, became a beacon of morale among the fighters. Their lives were now intertwined with a greater purpose, one that pushed them to the forefront of the struggle for freedom. Both sisters felt the emotional weight of their decisions. They were no longer just sisters but warriors in a fight for survival and dignity. As spring turned into summer, the tide of the war began to shift, fueled by the courage of countless individuals like Anna and Liesel. In the months that followed, there were victories, both small and large, against Muller's regime. The sisters witnessed the collapse of fear as communities united, sharing resources and strategies to outmaneuver the occupying forces. Their families, once fractured by the horrors of war, began to rebuild their lives, finding strength in unity and purpose. Years passed, and the war eventually came to an end. A weary Berlin emerged from the ashes, but the scars of conflict ran deep. Anna and Liesel, now grown women, were forever changed. They had paid a heavy price for their fight, but had also gained a sense of belonging within their community. As they walked through the streets, now filled with laughter and hope, they often reflected on how far they had come from the brink of despair. Their bond had only deepened, forged in the fires of resilience and loyalty. In the long term, the sisters became active in shaping the future of their country, advocating for peace and justice, sharing their stories not only to remember the past, but to inspire future generations. Anna often spoke about the importance of compassion, reminding others that even in times of chaos, the human spirit could prevail against oppression. Liesel, too, became a voice for those who had suffered, believing that healing could only come through understanding and solidarity. They had transformed their harrowing experience into a legacy of courage, forever etched in the history of their land. What did you think? Comment and click hype